Good evening, friends. This is Brad with another bracket breakdown. It's still 1 week away from the announcement of official playoff brackets. And at the end of this, I have a special, just hot take for you. So you're going to want to stick around for the end of that one. Again, something that might be of interest to all of you six-man coaches, families, players, and athletic directors. Maybe something we need to kind of speak up about. All of the league championships have been clinched. It'll be Cheyenne Wells out of the Southeast. In the East Central, the champ is Idalia. In the Southwest, it's Sierra Grande. Pete's gets the championship in the North, and Hanover takes the title in the Central. Just for reference, here are the top 18 seeds as of last week. We talked about the potential for a lot of movement, and the rankings did not disappoint. In the top 8, we saw Cheyenne Wells and Pete's flip-flop in the 3 and 4 position. The bottom 8 saw a lot of movement. Grenada and Walsh flip-flopping in the 9 and 10. Branson, Kim, and Flagler both rose 3 spots into the 11 and 12 spot, respectively. Fleming, Arickaree, and Prairie all dropped 2, 1, and 3 spots, respectively, to the 13, 14, 15 position. Hanover held strong at the 16 spot. Here's what the bracket would look like if it was played today based on those seedings. Now you'll see something very interesting over here in quadrant 4 with the matchup number 13 Fleming at number 4 Pete's. Both of those teams are in the same league. So the way that works is the lower seeded team, Fleming, can either be moved up 1 or 2 spots or down 1 or 2 spots, depending on the seeding committee's decision, as long as that new matchup does not create a contest between league opponents in the first round. So number 13 Fleming could end up over here in the number 14 spot where Arickaree is, maybe down in the 15 spot where Prairie is. They could move up into the 12 spot where Flagler is, or the 11 spot where Branson Kim currently sits. So which rankings are relatively close to each other in those top 16? Well, very interesting. Number 3 and 4, Cheyenne Wells and Pete's, are only 0.007 points away from each other. That likely could change. We see a big chunk of close proximity rankings here between number 5 down to number 9, and then another big close chunk between number 10 and number 16. Now we saw some teams move up 3 and some teams move down 3. A lot of movement last week. We can see a lot of movement this week as well. Key matchups in the 5 to 10 spots. Next week in week 10, Eads hosts Otis. I think the winner of that game will definitely retain that number 5 position spot. Another interesting thing, look at number 6 Otis and number 7 Caliche, only 0.002 difference in their ranking numbers right now. Next week, Caliche plays Fleming, only a skosh down from them at the number 11 spot. That's kind of a coin toss to me. Same thing with Sierra Grande and Flagler. Not a lot of difference between Sierra Grande and Caliche above and Sierra Grande and Grenada below. This coming week, Sierra Grande plays at Flagler. If Flagler gets an upset, that could negatively impact Sierra Grande. Sierra Grande comes by with the win. I don't think it's going to really impact them very much. Grenada goes to Bethune next week. This is also interesting in that Bethune is ranked down at number 26. So Grenada likely to take the win there. But a win even over a very much lower than you opponent really doesn't affect you one way or the other. Walsh, however, not that far behind Grenada. Currently they're sitting in the 10, Grenada in the 9, 0.035 difference. And this coming week, Walsh hosts Stratton. Stratton, the number 2 team in the state. So if Walsh gets an upset, expect them to move. If Stratton walks away with the win, it might positively affect Walsh just a little bit because of Stratton's great ranking numbers. Now let's look at those bottom 16. A lot of tight numbers there, potentially a lot of movement. Impossible to say. I didn't think we'd see position moves of 3 up or 3 down, but that's what we saw this last week. So Walsh currently just ahead of Branson Kim, Both Walsh and Branson Kim face higher ranked opponents this week, so even a loss to those stronger opponents might positively affect both teams' rankings. Flagler takes on Sierra Grande at home in Flagler this week. Again, this could have a positive impact on Flagler. It would be an upset, and even a close game would positively affect Flagler. Look, they're only .033 away from Kim Branson. Fleming also plays a higher ranked opponent at home at Fleming this week against Caliche. They are only .002 spots away from Flagler. Talk about a tiny margin of error there. We could see some 12-13 flip-flopping between this week and next. Rickery, interestingly enough, is done for the season. They have a bye, so their fate rests in other people's hands. Very close to Fleming above them, but I don't think Fleming is going to drop, even if they happen to lose, at least if it's a closer loss to Caliche. I think Fleming's probably pretty safe in at least the 13th spot. Prairie, again, very close behind Rickery. .004 is the only difference there. The only thing that could hurt them is they're playing against Kiowa all the way down at the 24. Hanover still on the 16 spot, taking on Genoa Hugo. Again, a lower ranked opponent, but there's a big mathematical difference between Hanover and the number 17 team, Primera, below them. And again, as a league winner, even if they did drop to 17, Hanover would stay in the playoffs. Now it's time for my hot take. And guess what? Here's a spreadsheet. Really exciting, right? But this spreadsheet and the data that's here is going to show us something really important that I think we need to analyze and be honest with ourselves about in terms of the way we rank for playoffs and how we accomplish those goals. So let me talk you through this. This is our current rating system right here, 1 through 16, just the way that we're currently doing it. A 50-50% split between the Max Preps ranking and the RPI calculation. This column represents only the RPI calculation if we just used only RPI. This column represents just the Max Preps calculation if we only used Max Preps, i.e. what it's going to look like next year. Well, what does this all mean? Here's our top 4 teams. Whether you look at it in our current way, only RPI, like we used to do it in 6-man several years ago, or the way we're doing it next year with only Max Preps, it's the same 4 top schools. Whether it's the current way, the old way, or next year's way, those top 4 best teams will get the top spot in each bracket and theoretically should meet in the semifinals. We want the best teams playing for the championship. It still is honored all 3 ways. Well, what about the teams that should host their schools, should host a first round playoff? Well, guess what? It's still the same. The top 8 teams are the same schools in our current system, in the RPI system, and in the Max Preps only system. It doesn't matter that much. The same best performing 8 teams get to host a first round playoff game. Interesting. Well, what about the teams that make the playoffs, period? Guess what? Schools in the 9 through 16 positions in all 3 methodologies are the same schools. So we accomplish the same goal, whether we are combining Max Preps plus RPI, or if we just use RPI, or if we just use Max Preps. So here is the big question I think we need to ask. How are those 2 things calculated, and what does that mean in terms of what we're encouraging our teams to do, the way we're making our boys go out and get their wins? Well, in RPI, it's just math. It's only based on win percentage. RPI does not care if it's a win by 20 or a win by 30 or a win by 60 or a win by 2 points. It's a win or a loss, and the percentages therein. So it's non-judgmental. Our Max Preps is a big mystery, but there are parts of it that aren't mysterious. There's actually verbiage on the Max Preps website where they try to explain how their calculation works, although they don't really tell you anywhere. But there is verbiage that says if you're supposed to beat a team by a little margin and you beat them by a big margin, you get an extra bump in your rankings, i.e. if you run up the score, you get a bonus. And I think that's wrong. I don't think that's the way we should be coaching our young men in terms of how they should live their lives and how they should treat other people, I just don't think that's right. Get the win, be victorious, but do you really need to win by 80 points? I don't think so. As athletic directors and coaches, how do we want to instruct our next generation of young men to be victorious? Do we want them to be satisfied with a good win, or only satisfied if it's an absolute blowout, run up the score kind of win? What is it that we are encouraging? I think we can still validate victory and success if we go back to the mathematical fundamentals of the RPI calculation. If we stick with the max preps rating, we're going to encourage coaches and teams to run scores up when it's not necessary. That's my 2 cents. That's my hot take. If you agree with me, great. If you don't, let's have a conversation. If you do agree with me that we should go back to the RPI, which encourages, I think, better sportsmanship, let's let our voice known. Let's reach out to CHASA, to the football committees, to the powers that be. Let's really do what's best for the young men we're trying to lead.